when you're at the top of the organization looking down and you have the confidence to call the shots and you really do believe in it, that's when I think magic can really happen.
Every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm Jon Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. Welcome to the Jon Schultz podcast. We have another Jon on the show today, Jon Buscemi, who's a multifaceted entrepreneur in many industries, both sneaker and streetwear, amongst a lot of other things that we're going to discuss today. He's very, very entrepreneurial and very, very creative. He debuted his Buscemi brand at the Capsule Show in Paris in June 2013. Where, I think he redefined the high-end footwear market. Some examples is he launched a limited edition artisanal sneaker collection drawing comparisons to the Birkin bag. And then this iconic 100 millimeter diamond sneaker, very high price with 18 karat gold details, diamond encrusted closures. But best of all, I think his best accomplishment is he's a great person. So we're excited to have him on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting. So this show's about the myth of overnight success. And most very successful people have stories most people don't understand. And I always feel it starts when we're young and how we're shaped as a young person. So I guess my first question to you would be like, can you describe yourself growing up as a young Jon?
Describe myself growing up. I guess essentially related to my career, I was bit by the fashion bug a bit early. I think, in third and fourth grade, as a 7 or 8 year old, we were in a community in Long Island, which was like heavily influenced by, all types of music. And I happened to be into the hip hop side of it. My brother and his friends were into, more like the heavy metal and the rock side of it. But all these cultures came along with like a fashion element. Like my brother would have like cut off denim jackets and spiked belts and that whole side. And we were the hip hop side. All the Black and Latin families moved from Brooklyn and Queens to Long Island to our neighborhood. We were like Italians and Irish and Jewish and all of us together. And as a kid, just having all those influences, I got bit by the fashion bug and more importantly, the sneaker bug very early. We were customizing clothing and shoes and new era hats. And in third grade, I was selling my friend and my group. We made it into a business, literally selling hundreds of dollars worth of customized hats and sweatshirts and T-shirts in fourth, fifth grade, and making money to fuel my sneaker habit.
I mean, what's funny is I've done almost 80 episodes now. And when I ask this question, people will tell me, they did all these odd jobs that, when most people weren't working. But it wasn't 8 years old and it wasn't designing commerce. It was like working at for some gardener or, things that got you into, being an entrepreneur mode and learning what it is to make some money or feeling that, good thing about making money and hard work together. But 8 years old is pretty wild.
I don't think I was thinking about being an entrepreneur. I was thinking that my parents weren't giving me any money and I needed to have sneakers to go to school because if you didn't have the right sneakers. You're getting like people are making fun of you, and you're not looking correctly, and you're having. And also, I think just in my DNA, I wanted to look good. I mean, I always have there's something about me. I can't leave the house and I can't do certain things. I can't have my whole life is unfortunately or fortunately surrounded by trying to like one look good and then maybe outdo everybody that's around me, whether it's a car or a golf club or a hat or a sneaker. So yeah, I don't know if it was an entrepreneurial thing. I guess it was by default, but I was like fighting to survive in a world where, you know, everyone was like our school district, or I don't know, maybe it was just it probably was a lot of people. It was like you had to look good, you had to have the right sneakers on, you weren't like getting anywhere in the world, you know. So
Right. But listen, not everyone takes the route you did to actually achieve that. So I love it. I mean, I actually was into fashion too as a young person. I love clothes as well. I love looking good. I feel, when you walk into a room, like looking good and taking care of yourself, people notice. And candidly, I feel good about myself when I do it. But I did that a little bit in college, right? Like I wasn't as young as you. So what were some of the lessons then as a young person you learned being, whether you say entrepreneurial or however you did it? Like what were some of the lessons you learned that you sort of felt you took with you as a young person?
I mean, I don't remember, I remember very vaguely a lot of this stuff. I do remember a few moments where, one, I learned that you gained respect from peers or generally people around you, either in your family or your friends, when you made money. Like that was an early lesson. You know what I'm saying? Like I think I put a value on making money early. I think that's a big lesson. I've tried to pass that on to my son. Another lesson is, I think I learned I got the bug for making things. Is a lesson. Like I'm going to be 50 years old in October, on October 3rd. And I just love to make stuff. And I've been making stuff since I'm 8 years old. So I still love it. When I make a shoe, or if we make a new bottle for the hot sauce company, or if we do a new sandwich at the deli, I just like to make things and see how they come out. And I just like to tinker and sample. I think I like sampling,
Well, and
sample.
I heard that from you. I heard that your favorite, listen, because it's really the money comes, right? I know you did place emphasis on it, right? Because you felt it was the only way to survive. And I love that, right? Because at the end of the day, we have a certain way we have to live in our society to do what we want to do and to have impact, right? And money's part of it. But you said your favorite part is getting that sample back, like
Yeah,
all the hard work and everything you put into it, and like if it was just a sample, you would be okay. Which is just
absolutely. Yeah, I could be a product designer, that made zero or not. I could live happily with, a small salary and just making things for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? The money, you're right. Money, well, personally, I like to make as much money as possible. I mean, uh, you know, that's part of the capitalistic
absolutely.
animal instinct of capitalism inside of me, with the design side and the creative side. Creative capitalist, I've been told I am, or was, or still am.
You are.
um, yeah, I mean, I like the capital. I like the listen.
It's
Some
a
people don't like.
measurement.
We don't like to listen. It's like gauche to talk about money, but it is a measurement, and I really think, as much as I do love, opening a box and seeing a sample, I love maybe not as much, but just as much is the commercial side of something and seeing how it can make money. That's a great part of it. I love that part of it.
100%. And not all do, right?
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. So obviously you were in this culture. You picked your lane, right? Like you said, your other friends picked a different lane. Obviously, you're very into the skateboarding culture. How would you say music that you chose and skateboarding shaped your early design approach, like on how you thought about? Because you really, I mean, I know you're a modest, humble guy, but you've created these areas that are real areas, and like, you know, you are Buscemi, and Buscemi is a real thing that people understand as a culture of products. So how did that early part shape you? You think, and do you feel you've stuck with it, or how did you evolve?
I think skateboarding, along with the music and the culture, you know, the music really informed the streetwear. So let's call it streetwear and skateboarding. Those two things, without those, obviously nothing. Um, I think those two cultures, and I got so lucky to be involved at the perfect time where those two things came together. But when someone put a skateboard in my hand and I saw this kid Mike Janisak moved from California, I was in sixth grade or seventh grade. It's like an alien, a UFO landed in my town in Long Island. There's two California kids. One is Mike and Chris. They dressed with all the skateboard gear with the colors and they just looked like aliens to us. We wanted a piece of that. We had a chance to basically they were disciples of skateboarding, and our little crew in our neighborhood just got lucky to be able to meet these two, and they're skateboarding and they're doing these things, and we got involved in that. And not to get too deep into that story, but that little moment, I always say, was lucky because I got a chance to see the real authentic side of skateboarding, not just like going to the hardware store and buying a skateboard off the rack. Like, they took us to the right place. We saw the right way to buy a skateboard, right? That's a big cultural thing. It's very niche.
Yeah.
And then that store, it's a place called Danny's Right Away in Levittown, Long Island, which was 4 towns from me. We had no idea. Take the bus there with these guys. And then there's like a rack of Stussy and Skate Rags and Vision Streetwear, very important brands in skateboarding that had the California and New York and Paris, Japan, all these like intersections of fashion culture. And I'm just some kid from Long Island that, was a kind of a jock and a creative and liked hip hop. So we had like more of the hip hop style. So like, baggy jeans and track suits and Pumas and Jordans. But then like the next year we went to school in ninth grade. It's like Stussy and Carhartt and Skate Rags and Vision Streetwear. And now you're like, people are like, I'll never forget, our peers, and you're going into high school now, they're like, what are you wearing? But we love it, like it looks great. Because it was like, that's when skateboarding and fashion went like this, and it became streetwear, period. Streetwear is nothing without skateboarding, right? It's like all these elements. If it was tomato sauce, skateboarding's the garlic in the tomato sauce, right? It's like, it's the most important thing. So I was in the middle of that, right? And there was only a few of us in New York in the middle of that. So it was really cool to be able to be a part of that. And that whole thing has informed my entire career, right? Like the way I look at something is like, well, does it check the box of my, 13-year-old John,
Yeah.
If it does, then it works, and now I'm like designing golf things that have a New York City street skateboard influence, but you can't tell so much, right? It's like, now it's like shrouded in mystery, but like now guys kind of understand it. You know, it's crazy to think that all this stuff comes from like a skateboard in New York City and you know, a baggy pant, you know.
Well,
Like,
but that's the beautiful thing, and I also think the beautiful thing is like this was in you because
yeah.
you started that sort of journey with, from the music that you like to just doing what you're doing, and then all of a sudden these people show up, which I feel like if you're so into something, you have a huge belief system, and your eyes are wide open for opportunity.
Hmm.
Somehow people show up, and
That's
I
true.
found that in my life, and I think I love that you said it's shrouded in 13-year-old John.
Yeah.
Because like I know the lessons I learned from the people I learned them and who I hung around with really are my core today too. I mean, obviously we get older, we pivot. All right, so now you're ready to maybe get your first job. Like how did you choose your journey from being this young person and, entrenched in this thing to where you went next?
So I I kind of put down the customization and the, making things in high school. You had girls and driver's license and, sports. I played lacrosse at my high school, and I played sports at my high school, and skateboarding like was took over my life. So it was basically the entrepreneurial side was kind of gone. I got a couple of jobs and kind of became like a normal person. I mean, in junior high, I was like literally was like running like a business with my friends, like making stuff on the weekends. As much as that cool as that sounds, it wasn't like that cool, right? Anyway, um, I went to St. John's University. I always say I regret not going away to school. So basically, 20 miles from my house or less.
Yeah.
And I guess I enjoyed it until they politely asked me to leave. I did not make it through St. John's, and I've told this story 100 times, but to make a long story short, it's I made it to the second year St. John's, and I didn't know what I was going to do, if I was going to go to another school and try and get. I was basically like at a crossroads in my life. I didn't really love school. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and my friend, I won't mention any names. He was basically probably the dumbest person in my high school, but the most popular, and we all love him. He rolled up to a party in at my friend's house in Westbury, Long Island, in like a brand new Ferrari. At the time, I was into cars always, and it's like this guy. I mean, I don't think he was even 20 yet. Maybe he was 20. And to make a long story short, I got his ear at the end of the party. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm going back to college. He's like, you should come work with me. I'm working at a brokerage firm, and we're killing it. So essentially, I followed him. I I took an interview at a brokerage firm, and I became a broker.
It feels like the Wolf of Wall Street. Like
Okay, so yes, absolutely. It was actually a derivative of Stratton Oakmont. This
okay.
is 1994, Long Island
Wow.
brokerage firm. Okay,
Yep.
so I don't know if you saw the movie.
Yes.
There's a character in the movie named Chester Ming. That man's real name is Victor Wang, and I went to work for him at Duke and Company, like on right next to the lipstick building, the building next door. I worked there. I became a broker, and I became a broker, I think subconsciously, because I like to make money, and it could fuel my fashion habit, right? Like, and at the time, I had a lot of sneakers, more sneakers than a human being should have. And this is only the '90s, right? I was, like I
Dude,
said,
you're so early in this.
I
I
was
mean,
buying sneakers. Like I was at 13 or 14 years old. I had to know. I knew that I used to go buy two sneakers of the same. So one to wear, they say one to rock, one to stock.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was doing that in like 1986, way before everyone else. I don't know why. I think actually I know why. Because there was kids in my neighborhood or older guys in my neighborhood that would do that because they're like, this is not going to be around. I'm going to buy two of them, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I went on Wall Street to, I think, subconsciously fuel my lifestyle, which, had a lot to do with the fashion side and the sneakers. And I got pretty good at it. I made a bunch of money. I was only 20 when I got 20 or 21 when I got my license. And I went on this journey of, small cap, Wall Street, boiler room adjacent. It wasn't like the Stratton Oakmont, the movie you saw, but it had the same type of like high energy, high
That's how it was. I mean, it
It
wasn't
was
just them,
crazy.
it was
It was
everywhere.
crazy. And that really, I also say that was kind of a stop on my journey where I learned the power of rejection, right? And then I broke through that. I can never be rejected now again. Rejection doesn't hurt me anymore. It's like when you call 500 calls a day for 6 years in a row, you're like, it's like the training of gods, it's like I owe that
And what else? So
experience.
it prepared you for rejection. What else
It
did it
almost
prepare you
killed
for?
me. It almost killed me too.
Really?
Yeah, I went, listen, there was drugs, alcohol, parties, trips. Like I was involved in all that stuff, right? And it was excessive. And then in 1999, the tech bubble popped and I lost my entire book of business and I was like floating out there again. I actually had to go back to moved back with my parents at 26 years old for 6 months because I had a health issue. I was having panic attacks and anxiety attacks and I was transitioning into this. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just floating around. And thank God I met my wife, at that crossroads, and took a pit stop and took a few jobs in between. I had a couple of bucks in the bank, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. At one point, my friend Russell Abramson, who was a broker with me, who had the same type of issues, he started like a limo company. Like he started like the town car company. I was
Yep.
holding signs for like I was driving to JFK with like Mr. Smith,
I love
driving.
it.
And then I'll never forget. I picked up I forget his name. He's still around. The guy that runs Victoria's Secrets, the little Italian guy. Forget his name. Famous guy. I picked him up from Manhattan. I had to drive him to Long Island to Westbury to a Victoria's Secrets photo shoot. I'm the guy. I'm the limo guy. I'm like, I'm not this guy. So I drive to the Victoria's Secrets photo shoot. It's like Ambrose and Giselle's there. All the Victoria's Secret models are there, and I'm like the guy in the black, and I'm like, I'm not this guy. That moment, I will never forget. I sat on set there waiting for the guy to drive this guy back into the city. I'm like, I'm the guy that should be in the back of this car.
So
Watch
that
my
was that
drive.
the defining
It was
moment?
one of those defining moments for me. I called Russell the next day. I said, I'm not doing this. I cannot do this. And in about, I don't know, a month or so, I was off to California to figure out the journey of like becoming.
But this is what I love. Like,
Yeah.
what are
That
the
was it. That
odds
was
you're
a big
picking
moment.
this Victoria's Secret guy to go to the
Yeah.
fashion show
It
or
was like a
whatever
show.
it
It
was?
was no, it was a commercial shoot at a
But
big
but
house.
that's what you are about. Like you were seeing it's almost it's wild. It's like
I'd be lying. I'd be lying if I told you like the next day I went to California. But it wasn't a year. It
right.
was probably a month or so, 2 months that I was like, I figured it out, and then
Well, in the movie, it would have been your movie. It
right
would
in
have
the
been the
movie,
next day.
it's like boom, he's gone. Right, exactly right, exactly right. But that
But
was a big moment. I remember that moment distinctly. Like I should be on the other side of the camera here, and
And it's what you love. It's like you were shown a
That's right.
picture
I
of
saw
what
the
you
whole
love. It was
thing,
like a
man.
God moment, candidly. So
And literally, I mean, if you took a 10 years later, I was in the back of that car, man. A lot.
there you go.
Like a lot. You know
So
what I mean?
let's talk about that,
And I
right?
still am.
You are,
Yeah.
and it's only going to get. Listen, you got so many years left, but so here you are. I love that because that just shows that people that see you today, like we're always on our last leg before something happens. It's never like easy on how you got to get to where you got to go. So you go to California. I guess you started at DC Shoes. Was that your first
Hmm.
job? Or
Yeah.
was there something before that?
Well, like I said, it was the driving the town car. There was I worked at, a friend of mine was running the Mount Sinai tech department. I took a job, being a, a tech guy on answering the phone. I was doing a bunch of odd things for about, I don't know in which order those are, but I
Yeah,
essentially from the end of 1999 till 2001, like that 2 year period, I had the health issues and the odd jobs and my wife, and I left not my, she was a girlfriend at the time. I said, I cannot do this anymore. I mean, there's a huge piece I'm leaving out of this, but to make a long story short, my best friend at the time and a whole slew of my friends were in the skateboarding industry because my best friend at the time was a professional skateboarder. So
yeah,
he took off, and I was going to California from like summer break, winter break, Easter break. We'd go to California and hang out with him because he had an apartment or whatever. And then I got my job on Wall Street, and that was it kind of like took a little bit of a break from going to California, but I still had these contacts when these California guys, like his friends would come to New York, we'd hang out, and his friends weren't just like regular guys. His friends were like guys that owned DC Shoes, right?
yeah.
Guys that owned the skateboard company, guys that did this, big professional skateboarders. Anyway, so through those connections, I packed my car with him actually because he was in New York. He's like, "Well, I'll drive with you back to California. Why not?" Drove to California to essentially find a life and a job and move there. Like packed my car to move there to find myself. And this story is too long to tell, but essentially a friend of a friend worked at DC Shoes and said, we're hiring a product line manager. John, you'd be perfect for that. I'm like, what the hell is that? I had no idea what that meant. And I said, well, I don't know. I think I'm a salesperson because I'm a stockbroker. Is there any jobs in the sales department? And he's like, just come down here. I made a resume, which was basically a picture of myself. Back then, this is the days of like Yahoo and Google starting and all the cool
Yeah.
tech companies starting. So everyone had like this cool resume. I don't remember that I don't know if you remember the resume era. Like guys were doing like weird things with their resumes.
Yeah.
Basically, there's a
Yeah.
picture of me with my arms crossed in front of my sneaker collection, like stacked high behind me, and it just said sneaker connoisseur, overall nice guy or something. It was like I literally was like a 2-line resume, just a conversation starter. And my name was in the supreme font, Jon Buscemi.
Love that.
So I went down there, had my resumes. I had a 3 or 4 hour interview with multiple people. I'm giving this resume to people. They're like, "This is your resume?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can ask me any question you want. I don't have any experience. I just know that I should be working here." Right. And way in, the guy was like, "Dude, you're crazy. Yeah, you fucked it up. Like you fucked yourself." I did not. Right. Someone in the company loved it, and I got hired to be this product line manager. And about a month into this job, I was literally like going into the design department to these kids that are like surfers, that not a part of any type of culture, don't understand sneakers, don't understand anything. I was just like, why are you designing this shoe? Like, can I help you? You know? So I'd stay like extra credit or extra time, whatever. I was living in San Diego by myself, fish out of water, and I was like nothing else to do but work. I was living by myself, and everyone. I go into LA on the weekend, but from Monday to Friday, I was just like on campus, like rattling cages. Like, what? Can I help you? Can we do this? And to make a long story short, about a year into my job at DC, we designed a shoe that still to this day, and then made it was the highest revenue shoe for that year, and it's probably been the biggest shoe that they've ever had all
Ever.
time, ever. Period.
Ever.
End of story.
It's like
Ever.
Kleenex for
Billions
the
of dollars, billions now, billions of dollars in revenue, and then it was like, okay, this guy's I mean, at one point, I'm just like a guy at DC Shoes. At one point, there was High Snobiety or Hype Beast or something. They came to interview me in my office at DC Shoes without my boss knowing. And that was like the turning point. That was another point. That was another point in the journey. Like, my boss came in and was like, John, what's happening? Why are they here? They're here to interview me about the shoe thing, the shoe that we did. Really? You didn't ask me. I said, I didn't think I had to ask you. Can you move, please, boss? And that was like the beginning of the end, right? I was walking around there like, well, listen, we all have a little bit of ego. I'm promoting the company. The guy's trying to like, you know what I mean? It was like one of those things when you outgrow your boss, you know, it's like, all right.
So, all right. So here you go. You're getting this interview. It's almost like this magic moment. You don't even realize, you're getting attention without looking for it. So where does this go from here? Because I know, you were there for what, 6-7 years, and then, you got into the eyewear thing, and then you started gourmet. You had all these other things going on. And, I know one of the things that was important for you was to have, your creative ability to do what you do. And with partners, and you saw your first instance of this, right? You can't always be you. You got to be, part of something, which we all are anyway, but creatively, that's constricting. So where'd you go from DC Shoes? Where'd you go after that, and what happened?
So at DC, like that moment with the boss and the interview and like seeing, well, listen, these are all good problems, right? Having static and having like a lot of static with like a boss where you've kind of like, I wasn't even an apprentice. It was more like I came in as like this dynamo and just kind of like figured it all out on my own. Thanks, boss. I take it from here type of thing. That just kind of took the air out of the tires. And, I would start to like not come in on Fridays. I go to LA from Friday and Saturday, make excuses. I'm like, basically like, just like, it's like, take me out back and shoot me, right? Or fire me. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I just waited and wait. And then these trips to LA, it was probably almost a year, John. Like I'd leave Thursday night, go to LA and stay with my friend Greg or my friend Atiba, or, I'd just stay at friends' houses and stay the weekend, party, hang out. And like you're in LA. It's a growing city at the time, 2005, whatever it was. Still early days for LA. It's so much different now than it was 19 years ago. But anyway, my friend Greg, who had a streetwear store downtown LA called Situation Normal, he had a brand, and he had, access to manufacturing, and he had manufacturing in LA and Japan and overseas and Italy and all these great things that I was looked at. And then he had this store that he could sell everything in. And I just kind of would go back and be like, I want to start my own. Like I got the start my own brand bug.
Yep.
And I'm in my office, like daydreaming at DC and like coming up with ideas. And that's where I came up with the idea for Gourmet. And through thank God for DC. Through the DC journey, I never left. I never went to Europe before I was at DC. I never went to, Australia. I mean, I went to, I don't know, 25 countries with DC in like 4-year period. And I became a foodie at DC, like period, end of story, full stop. Like had access to cities. And when I'm in a city, I'm not just like sitting in the lobby of a hotel ordering an omelet. You know what I mean? I'm like in the city. I'm out. I'm asking, where should we be eating? What vintage store am I going to? What record store am I going to? What are the fashion stores? And it's like I was like sucking the juice out of like every trip, right? I wasn't like stopping, and I became a foodie. And I always say I became kind of a foodie in this period, and then like it took off from there. And then gourmet was really the idea of my love for food and streetwear, and to put these two kind of, I'm always putting things together, right?
Yeah.
So, the first, it was like graphical, you know, food graphics and kind of things around restaurant culture, chef culture, and all that stuff, which is very popular now, even with like the bear and what I do at Uncle Paulie's, like all these things, kind of like juxtaposition of that. And then the next step was I moved to LA. Our other friend Greg had left Zoo York and moved to LA, who's Greg's friend, Greg Lucci, and we just came together. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, I want to move to LA, start my own brand, but I can't do that unless I have a job. And we basically, listen, this is a long story, but essentially I left DC to go work at Lotto, which is an Italian footwear and sportswear brand. They make tennis and golf. And our friend David, who was then the CEO of Oliver Peoples, owned the North American license for Lotto. We all moved up to LA. We ran the Lotto business. I was the managing director, kind of in quotation marks, creative side, but I helped with the marketing and the brand strategy and the design and the sales plan. And because I had all that experience from DC, but on the side, we were working on gourmet. We were like moonlighting. It was funding the gourmet business essentially. And then we launched Gourmet in 2007. And then David left to go to Oliver Peoples, and I went with him. So I always say to entrepreneurs, and I get this question all the time, you better have the butter for the bread, right? You can't just go start your business unless you have income coming in, and you can moonlight. You have weekends and nights to work on your passionate, your brand.
Well, and what's interesting about that, because you
I
mentioned
always did
eyewear.
that. I still do that to this day.
If you look at Warby Parker, all of them had their job until they felt they
That's right.
didn't need it anymore. I mean, they were smart in calculating what they needed to do. That didn't stop them. And that's what I think is the most important point. What
Very
you just
important
said is that there's more hours in the day if you really want it to happen.
That's right.
Right? All right. So you have Gourmet, you have these partners, you're doing great things. It seems like you get these itches for something different. But what I love about it, if you look at your history, like everything seems to be preparing you for the next thing, which I wish people would understand that life, when they say life is a journey, like that's what it means.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get the experience and all the failures and the challenges and the things that go wrong to actually maybe one day make something go right, right? So how did you then, get to Buscemi when you really didn't have to? I mean, you could have just stayed where you were.
Right. So when we left Lotto to go to Oliver Peoples, Gourmet we kind of got shot out of a cannon. We were 3 industry veterans that started our own brand together. And, through the press that we had, listen, a lot of this is like rigged, right? Not in a bad way. Like we know the guys who started Hypebeast. We know the guys who started we know the editor at GQ. We know these are guys that we all came up together, right? So when we launched Gourmet, we were like industry darlings. And then we get shot out of a cannon, we got sued by Nike. It's a whole other story for, copyright infringement on one of the shoes we made. And, then you have 2008, the, the
Crisis.
world almost came to an end.
Right. I
We're in the
remember
middle of
that day,
that.
man. I felt
We're in
it.
the middle of that, but I'm still at Oliver Peoples working. It's like all these things are happening around. It's just like chaos. And I still have this kind of like shining light of Oliver Peoples' job. Like, but at the end of the day, you're starting to look at this, people, you start to see how people are looking at you at your job. It's like, you don't work here. You have your own brand. You're just phoning this thing in. And that wasn't really the case. But I guess from the outside looking in, when you're an entrepreneur, you're in survival mode. Like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul at all times. And we actually put Gourmet in a box and like kind of shipped it over to a few guys that were going to run the business and put some capital into the business. We didn't sell the business. We partnered with essentially industry sneaker veterans to make Gourmet the sneaker brand.
Yeah.
Instead of doing, $1,000 cashmere and leather hoodies in Italy and all this stuff, because we saw during the 2008 things were coming to it. Like it was almost over. Like we went to a trade show. No one was there. We had plans of doing $1 million in business and orders. We only got $100,000 in orders. It was a big debacle.
Yeah. The world stopped.
The world stopped. So I saw that, and through the transition of this new group, which didn't work out, it's adding more kind of, more chefs, in the kitchen, more cooks in the kitchen, more Indian chiefs in the kitchen, whatever you want to call it. And it got diluted and it got lost in translation. And these guys took the business in a different direction, actually mismanaged it. And I started to realize I'm sitting in my office in Hollywood, I'm at Oliver Peoples, and I'm like, I can't go on like this. I need to figure out what the hell I'm going to do. And I actually started to go look for a job, which I hadn't had in many years. I was going to go back into like the corporate, maybe at Nike or maybe at Adidas, or I didn't know. I was looking at streetwear brands, which were, the streetwear brands that were exploding, like the Hundreds and other brands, Supreme. You may get a job. And I had the idea for this brand, which wasn't really a brand. It was an art project, to be honest. It was like, and it wasn't called Buscemi. It was supposed to be called $100 million. The idea was, everyone was like the millionaire. Louis Vuitton made a sunglass called the Millionaire. It's like million this, million that. And I was like, a billionaire. There was actually a company called Billionaire in Germany, which I always thought was stupid. Right. But I just thought it would be interesting to write $100 million out on something. And that's how one of the reasons we got the 100mm shoe after the fact. But anyway, I created this small collection of goods, which was a leather dog leash, which was a beautiful piece, a leather weekender. We did a leather Java jacket for a coffee cup, and we made a leather jacket, and then I did a leather shoe, the 100mm shoe, which came from a dream, an idea of cutting up a Birkin bag and making it into a sneaker. And I put these products together as an art project on the side. And essentially, when all these things on the side came to me, I said, I have to do this, and I got a couple bucks from my brother-in-law and a few other people, and we launched Buscemi. It was, this could be a separate podcast, the launch of Buscemi. You could talk for an hour about all the details, but that was I think everything, my whole career was pointing me towards doing my own thing. And I've always was working under a group or a boss or a this or that. I think when I broke out into having to like call the shots, and not to be arrogant or anything or to be, conceited, but I think I needed to, because when you're at the top of the organization looking down and you have the confidence to call the shots and you really do believe in it, that's when I think magic can really happen. And that's
and I also think on the creative side, because
Yes,
You like not everyone will feel what you feel
that's
till
right.
it's mainstream, right? So if you
It's
look
like
at
a guy. It's like a
jobs,
running back. He's running with the
yes,
ball. No one else is like telling his feet where to go.
no, it's like
It's like
it's
an
like anyone
individual
that
thing.
had any creativity
That's right.
had
It's
trouble
individual.
with anyone holding them back for what, because most people have to see it to believe it. I get people like you believe it before you see it, and it's a
100%.
completely different mentality,
That's a well said. I've never heard it that way. That's absolutely right.
right?
You
And then you
feel it
did
before
it.
you see it.
You believe it before you see it, and then
Yeah.
you launch Buscemi. Uh, so what was the first thing? It was this 100 millimeter? I mean, like, what was the first success story?
Yeah. So those 5 products I told you, um, I took them to Paris Fashion Week. To our friends of ours owned the capsule show in Paris, and I basically got the last booth, the last 10 by 10 section in a trade show. I actually wasn't that comfortable there, but I said, you know what, this is a good start. I'm in Paris and I can get in front of some people. And I sat in the corner of this trade show. And again, we're industry veterans at this point. We're industry darlings. We know press. We know buyers around the world. We've just been around. You know what I mean? We come from the beginning of this thing. And, like Ronnie Fi came by from Kith, and, Pogie from United Arrows, and, this person, and Chris from Union. All the most important stores in the world came by to see me. And they're like, no one touched the bag. No one touched the belt or the leash, the dog leash. Everyone's just picking up this shoe. Like it was like glowing or something, right?
It
Did
was.
have a gold lock on it, but it was something about this shoe at the right time. It was the perfect timing for men's sneakers, where men's sneakers and Christian Louboutin and Tom Ford and Giuseppe Zanotti. I was just like, it was perfect timing for this shoe from a price point perspective, from what everyone wanted in the market. It couldn't have been timed better. And 10 or 12 the best stores in the world took a chance. We got, a couple hundred pairs in orders. We actually made a couple of the bags and a couple of the things, but the shoe was the main thing. And, I got back to California. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for these. It's like $400,000 in orders. So my partner said, listen, we're going to finance you. We're gonna go. Like I raised a very small amount of money, but I got backfilled by my partners, my brother-in-law and his cousin, and they just like all jumped in. Actually, Andy Agiloni, who became my CEO, was one of those guys in the early days and actually quit his job, or he was an entrepreneur. He really quit his job. He owned a massive real estate company. He actually quit his job to come be the CEO of my business, because it was just like he just knew that he felt it too. He's like, you created something really special. I'm going to help you. And he did help me. He had no fashion experience. He's just one of the guys in your life that understands business. He can walk into a room and, he negotiated with the CEO of Barney's, and he negotiated with the Neiman Marcus buyer and and made people give deposits that never gave a deposit in their life. And he was a real special angel.
Well, I believe sometimes you want those people that are
I love
outside
those
what the
people.
norm is, right? Because
Yeah,
they're going to
exactly.
ask for things that
He'd ask he'd ask like someone like a guy at Saks Fifth Avenue buyer that's been there for 25 years and say, we need this, this, and this. And if you don't want to do it, we're not going to sell you any shoes. So you make the decision. Like, we're all sitting there like, Andy, that's not how this shit works. And you know what? He got the thing done.
well, just like
These crazy people in business, it's like that I've
all
learned.
of them saw what you finally believed.
Yeah, exactly. He
You
was one of the
surrounded
early
yourself with
believers.
people that did the same thing in a way that you couldn't do. So,
That's
like,
right,
that's what
and that's
makes.
why it worked. I give a lot of credit to him for, helping me in that journey. I mean, it's like I
Listen,
wouldn't
I
have
have a
done.
partner. We're 1 + 1 = 50.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
like, bar none. I think a superpower is knowing what you're not good at as much as knowing what you're good at and
Yeah,
focusing on what you're good at.
never
All
thought of
right,
that.
so you have this brand, and I know social media was beginning, and obviously it's much different than it is today. and I guess it allowed you to sort of scale it up a little bit and form your, I wouldn't say followers, but the people that believed in what you were doing, the right customer, and obviously you kept having successes, you kept doing collabs, and now if you dial to today, hot sauce, golf, how does it feel to sort, and I'm not saying you're coming out of your lane, but you say that network was the most important thing throughout this whole journey. We haven't really touched on that yet, but you know how I know that's the truth? Because every time we talk about something, you're naming all these people that are in your life. You're not naming them to name them. You're naming them because I know you have a sense of feeling that they were all there for a reason, because you created a network that was long lasting and true.
Right.
So how has that helped now Rodan? How has it helped the hot sauce? And, why is it so important? I've had a CRM since I started in business. I always wanted to know more about the person than I cared about myself. Because I always felt Charlotte's Web is what I was creating, that if I could be 1 degree of separation from anyone, that would be my success.
Right.
Because you only know what you know till you know more with someone else helping you. And I think asking for help is a superpower. How has it helped you? What makes you go into these other areas? Is it because you just want something new? Is it because it's hot? You're still in your lane, but why do you keep going?
I think when we had a very fast success with Buscemi, and we got shot out of another cannon, and we did a lot of revenue in a short mere period of time. And I think I've learned so much along that short 10 years. I learned so much about business as well, and and the private equity side was getting hot, right when I remember at DC, friends of mine had another brand that was competitive to DC, and DC had sold to Quicksilver, and there's a lot of acquisitions happening that I was, you don't really get into that side of the business until you're in it, right? So
Yep.
I was in this inside of like acquisitions and M&A and private equity and blah blah blah. So I knew that nothing grows to the sky, and I don't know, for better or for worse, we sold Buscemi 50% of the business to private equity at a very, very healthy multiple very early on in the business. And I made a bag. We took the money off the table. And I knew that as now an entrepreneur that has capital to play with, I wanted to kind of like keep that going. And one of my dreams was always to be able to have the ability to capitalize either startup or on my own, or to invest in another founder, blah, blah, blah. So my CEO, Andy, his son and his best friend were at UC Santa Barbara. They had this idea. They wanted to start they actually wanted to start a clothing business that was called Sauce, because they owned the word sauce on Instagram and Facebook, just at Sauce. They were literally at class one day, like looking on Instagram, and they got the word sauce. They populated it with about 40,000 followers, or 30 or 40,000 followers. And then they came to see me and they said, what should we do? We want to start a clothing brand. And I was like, you shouldn't start a clothing brand. You should start a sauce company, and then it turned into hot sauce. I helped them design the packaging, and I worked on the brand strategy with them and the brand architecture, and we came up with ideas, and these guys really fueled the business. But I think the question that you asked was, why or how. It's really, listen, there's no secret. Well, the secrets are with me, but there's no secret really of, I'm using the same, like Phil Jackson's playbook, Jon Buscemi's playbook. It's whether it's hot sauce or sandwiches or golf or, whatever it is, right? I'm using these little tricks that I've learned over the short period of time I've been doing this, right? So it's really, I think the number one thing is, and my friend Coltrane Curtis, I always steal this line from him. We try to influence the influence, right? That's it. That's really it. That's the number one thing. If you can do that, if you can influence the press person or the editor or the brand owner or the opinion leader in the space, we did it with Wolves Whiskey. We went straight to the guys that are in the chat room. We went straight to like the opinion leaders in that space to influence them, right? Like the guys in the whiskey community and that write the articles, that give out the awards, that understand the space, that talk about it online, that people trust their opinions. I'd always want to go right after them from the beginning, right? Just like I did with the shoes. So, and with the hot sauce, we did the same thing. And using the power of earned media to fuel, having the opportunity to have earned media and to be able to send, a bottle of hot sauce or a sneaker to one of the most popular people in the world, and them to post that on their social media or evangelize that product without being paid in an authentic way is one of our superpowers. That's again comes with decades of connections and experience and working your ass off 24 hours a day and doing cool stuff where people can trust you. That's a real superpower I think that myself and my crew have had over, the past decade or plus.
But I also think, because, people do it for different reasons, right? They do it because they really love it, or they do it because you've helped so many people as well, which you haven't touched upon, where, at the end of the day, they're helping you, you're helping them. And it's really how the network works, right? And it is authentic because they trust you and they trust your products.
100%.
So very exciting. So I guess we're going to be seeing more and more products from you. What's the most recent product you want everyone to take a look at for the listeners?
For the listeners.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, something I'm really excited about is for the Truff, the sauce brand, we created a buffalo wing sauce for Truff, which is absolutely spectacular, unbelievable, actually. And I've for years been, and this isn't just a sales pitch, this is the truth. For years, you want to just be able to like cook some wings and throw the sauce on instead of like doing the Frank's Red Hot with the butter and like 100%. Doing the whole rigmarole.
Yeah.
It's like unbelievable. I suggest everyone try it.
I love it. So we'll place that so everyone can find that. And, I just want to, well, first of all, before I end, like, I love how you're full circling your foodie thing that you ended up having from DC, right? And you're now doing some sauces. So,
and actually that's just by chance.
Chance.
The first thing that we dabbled in is, Paulie, James, and myself, after we got a couple of bucks, we couldn't find a great sandwich in our neighborhood in Hollywood. So we said, why don't we open a sandwich shop, a small one, Uncle Paulie's. And now we have 4 delis, 4 sandwich shops, 1 in Vegas, 3 in LA. We have an amazing merchandise business. We sell kind of like start our own little streetwear brand inside of the deli where we sell hats.
You're combining it all, man. It's, man. One day there'll be a museum, hopefully.
Exactly.
But anyway, I know you spent a lot of time with us, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Jon Schultz here. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Would really appreciate it if you would like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Looking forward to being with you soon.